Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here with Achilles Rain, and week 2 is in the books. An entertaining and interesting week 2. I'm ready to get into the action. Are you ready to get into some recaps of these games, Achilles?
Yeah, man, week 2 was exciting. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but it was fun overall, and let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's start out with our mutual picks. Not quite as successful last week, but not totally in the tank. We went 2-3 last week. Let's start off with a winner. We had the Carolina Panthers plus 3.5 versus the New Orleans Saints, and pretty much as this game unfolded, we should have put a whole lot of money on this game here, but Carolina ended up dominating this game versus the New Orleans Saints pretty easily. 26-7 was the final, and I think that was even being kind to the Saints. They literally had no offense on this game. What do you make of this game? How impressed are you by Carolina? Do you think this is sort of a Saints, just a little bit of regression from week 1, a little bit of them missing all their coaches in week 2?
I mean, of the game, but I mean, just look at the game. Last week, you saw a super high-powered offense in New Orleans and a really formidable defense going up against a team that we all kind of expected to be at least one of the top contenders in the NFC, and that was the Packers. And they just didn't show up. I mean, I'm sure the coaching had to do at least a small part. I'm sure that, playmakers being – and I mean, there's just so many different things that come into play. And Carolina showed up, so you can't take that away from them. They won this game just as much as New Orleans lost this game.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more impressed just overall with Carolina. I was sort of bullish on them coming into the season, thinking they were going to be a little bit better than people expected. That defense looks really, really nasty right now, and they were just all over the Saints, and Jameis Winston just could not get going at all. He looked brutal in this game, but offensively, Carolina, it's not always pretty, but they get it done. Darnold was solid, I thought, but I started to see some forced throws in there, but I think if they could keep him away from that, this Carolina team could be really good. He finished with 305 yards. McCaffrey finished with 72 rushing yards and 65 receiving yards, so he continues to bounce back off of an injury season, and then they found that one big play. They hit DJ Moore for a big down the field play, and I think that's where this Carolina team, if they can stay strong defensively, manage to control the ball with McCaffrey, and then a little bit like the Titans offense, then find 2 or 3 plays a game where they hit either Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore, on that big huge play where they suck in that defense on the play action pass.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was really impressed. To me, this was probably one of the biggest, upsets of the week, and it was really surprising. But I'm not taking anything away from Carolina. They came up, they showed up, and as you said, this team just looks really good as long as they can keep, the whole offense running the way it's going pretty smoothly. I think that the future looks good for them.
Yeah. Let's flip things to the Saints side of things. Thought the defense once again was okay, considering what the offense was doing to them. And a lot of those coaches that were out were on the defensive side of things, but it probably won't be the first time we have this conversation all year long. But Jameis looked just horrible in this game. Had 2 picks, but that wasn't even the bad part. He was 11 for 22 for 111 yards. Just really couldn't complete passes. Now, you look at this receiving group, it's really, really sort of unproven in, Marquez Callaway, Little Jordan Humphrey, Jawan Johnson. But I don't know. How long do you think this Saints team will stick with Jameis if these kind of results are popping up?
I I don't know. The first week, like I said, they came out and they looked really impressive, both on offense and defense. Then they come out and they look, on the defense side of the ball, it's a little understandable, like you said, with the coaches being basically out because of COVID protocol. Even though they have their virtual meetings and all that, it still really changes kind of, the way the team prepares, and on offense, there's really no excuse other than, players just had a really bad day. I don't know if we can expect a lot of this type of, play going forward from the offense. I don't think we can expect a lot of, week one type of play from the offense going forward. I think this is going to be a matchup type of thing. We talked about it, during our previous show. Divisional opponent. This is one of the reasons why we took the Carolina bet, because we thought it'd be at least a little bit close. And it showed, these teams know each other and they're going to play each other tough.
Yeah. Let's have a little bit of an NFC South conversation. Do you think these Carolina Panthers can contend in that NFC South division? Maybe push that Tampa Bay team a little bit. I will get to the Atlanta team. I don't think they will be pushing anybody at all season long. And it seems like the Saints might be a little bit inconsistent. So that leaves Carolina. Do you think we could get a little bit of push for Tampa Bay from Carolina this season?
I don't know. Tampa Bay is obviously, everyone's favorite to win it all again. And part of the reason I don't think Carolina's ready yet. I don't think they're quite there yet. They still have, a couple different hurdles to go over. But I think, at least they're showing potential to be competitive. This isn't the Panthers for last season. It's a whole new look, it's a whole new dynamics, a whole new feel. Even with the comeback of certain, players that were hurt last season, I think it's making a huge difference, but I don't think they're quite there yet. They could definitely play against, everybody in that division, but I don't think they're quite ready to really be competitive.
Yeah. I don't know if they're competitive on the Tampa Bay level, but I do definitely think they can push for one of those playoff spots in there if this defense holds up like I think it will. All right, let's move to a game which everybody is hyping up, and me and you, we've already talked about it a little bit off podcast air, but we weren't quite as impressed with the Arizona Cardinals 34-33 win as apparently everybody else is. And everybody else has now made Arizona their Super Bowl contender. And I think we're a little more in the this is a little bit more smoke and mirrors than it lets on. But we got the loss here. Arizona first half -3. They got off to a terrible start. We're down 20-7, managed to push it back and go up by 1 at halftime. Didn't cover that one. So we missed that on the first half. But really, I just want to get into this Arizona game. The yards were there, but everybody's been slurping up Kyler Murray. I thought he was very, very dangerous with the ball in a game that I think they should have annihilated. The defense, which looked like world beaters versus the Titans, was getting shredded both on the ground and through the air on the Minnesota Vikings. And if a kicker makes a 30-yard kick in a NFL game, mind you, the Cardinals lose, and I don't think everybody's rejoicing quite like they are. So what did you make of this game?
Like you said, we talked about it earlier off the air, and to me, like you said, it's smoke and mirrors. I know they're tough. I will say that they're a tough team. They're a tough team to game plan against because they have a very, very high-powered offense. They're a team that explosive they are. But as far as like Kyler Murray's development goes, I see a lot of the same things that I've seen from him over the last couple of seasons, which is he makes a lot of really impressive throws, in situations where you wouldn't expect him to. But I think, getting those throws completed has really been a disservice to himself. He doesn't do a lot of the fundamentals correctly. I see him make big plays, but they're plays that very easily could go, the other way. And it's going to be those type of situations that are going to cost them games going forward, especially against the elite teams. And as you mentioned, that defense, I thought it was really disappointing the way they performed. I thought they would at least show up and try to keep it, low scoring. But at defense, it's week 2. It's hard to really predict what we're going to see going forward from them. They showed a lot of potential during that Tennessee game, but I don't know what to make of that defense right now. It's that offense that scares.
Well, sort of, I think people start to overrate these teams a little bit, especially these two teams. I think these are the main culprits because they look at their fantasy team. You see the Arizona Cardinals, you see Kyler Murray racking you up 30, 40 points in fantasy. You see the flashy receivers in, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, the quote unquote sleeper Rondell Moore, though everybody seemed to know Rondell Moore was going to be good. And anyone who watched him play at Purdue knew he was going to be good. And then you got you have your fantasy team who's just racking up points with these guys, and you aren't visually watching the game, and you aren't going, well, why is the defense getting shredded by a Minnesota team that couldn't rack up any yards on the Cincinnati Bengals? And then you're like, why is Arizona throwing sloppy picks and sloppy plays? If you watch that game, there was the whole reason the Vikings got, 40 seconds to go down there and kick that field goal is because on first down, they called a QB run and Kyler Murray runs out of bounds.
Yeah.
When they're trying to run out the clock, and it's like, this team is so just wonky. And, I sort of look at the Cardinals and I see sort of the same team we saw last year. Do I think they could get to 9, 10, 11 wins? Yeah, if things break right. But I also think they could go down in that sort of 7, 8 win category, a lot like they did last year. And there's probably going to be a swoon in there where they lose a couple of these games where they're undisciplined and don't play well. So that'll be an interesting sort of thing. And then you got the complete fantasy side of things on the Minnesota Vikings, where you got Kirk Cousins, who always puts up numbers, doesn't put up a lot of wins. You got Dalvin Cook. I can't say much about him other than I wish he wasn't on Minnesota, but he was a beast in this game, I will say. And then you got the fancy receivers in Jefferson and Thielen. So it just seems it's more fantasy oriented here with Arizona, and that's why everybody loves them than actually watching the game and seeing any substance here.
Yeah, and I completely understand where they're coming from. I remember, a few years back when Steven Jackson was the running back for the Rams, and having him on my fantasy team, and he would just put up some ridiculous numbers, but the team had 2 wins on the season, 3 wins on the season. So it's just, I understand how the actual, the base of the game can get lost, in the flow of stats and points. Like sit down, watch a Cardinal game, and just, not just this season, but go back to last season, and you see, this one of the ended up in 3rd place in the division. It's just, you can't keep this type of game style up for an entire season without losing games.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they play out through the rest of the year. On the Vikings side of things, really a sort of tough loss here. I did think they played much better in this game, but once again, they find ways to lose the game. So what do you make of the Vikings?
Yeah, I thought they were, better than they were last week. That's not saying much last week.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been too hard.
Exactly. But I thought that at least they showed a little bit of a resurgence on offense, which they needed, because defensively they're not what they were a few seasons ago, and I don't think they're going to be going forward. So they're going to have to rely a lot on their offense to keep them in games, and maybe a defensive play here and there. But I thought they played better. They were a little. I was a little bit surprised. I didn't expect them to come out, firing on all engines the way they did, and they were close in the league.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if this offense could keep up. I've pretty much given up on this Minnesota Vikings defense. I think it's going to be sort of porous all year long. But if they can get sort of that Dalvin Cook going like he did, he took a lot of hits. So I don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. But if he can keep going, I think Minnesota, at least offensively, puts themselves into some games here. All right, we'll go to the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. And only the Atlanta Falcons could be down 3 points in the fourth quarter and somehow not cover a 12-point line here. I don't know how much analysis we really want to do on this game. The Bucks jumped on them. The Falcons found some life, and then Matt Ryan decided he didn't want to cover the spread and started throwing pick sixes left and right. So what do you make of the Bucks here? What do you make of the Falcons here?
I mean, the Bucks look just as powerful as they did towards the end of the last season during the playoff run, eventual Super Bowl win. They look just as good, and it's because the exact same team. I expect them to basically keep this kind of play, throughout the whole season. I will say that, early in this game when Atlanta was kind of in this game, you do see some holes that are at least, somewhat noticeable in that Tampa Bay defense, even with all the studs they have on there. So they're definitely beatable, but they're very potent. They have a lot of weapons on offense. You saw, Antonio Brown, you saw Gronkowski catch 2 touchdowns. I mean, I don't think he can keep up this type of pace he's at right now, but they have plenty of weapons to choose from. Tom Brady does not have a lack of weapons there. So that's not going to be an issue going forward, but this team definitely is beatable. It's just going to take the right team and the right game plan.
Yeah, you've seen that secondary get shredded a little bit here. 2 games in a row. It'll be interesting to see how that sort of evolves going forward for the Buccaneers, and why they're randomly trying to get Tom Brady the touchdown record as he throws a record number of 1-yard touchdown passes. I've never seen anything like it. I think he had 3 touchdown passes inside of 3 yards in this game. So that's cool. Think Gronk had 2 of them. So anyway, that's always fun. Nice little stat padding for free touchdown passes. I believe you were the beneficiary of that yesterday with Aaron Jones catching 2 2-yard touchdown passes.
Just a tad bit. I mean,
but at least he's a running back. So technically speaking, they would be handing the ball off to him as well for those touchdown runs. So anyway, Falcons wise, I wanted to ask you about, Matt Ryan. How long do you think the Falcons stick with it? They did put in Josh Rosen to sort of pull out the string here. I don't know if you can convince yourself to put Josh Rosen in to sort of just tank this season, but I must say, Matt Ryan looks washed. We're going to get to another washed quarterback here in a little bit, but he doesn't seem to be able to move in the pocket anymore at all. So unless he gets a clean pocket where he doesn't have to move, he doesn't seem able to sort of compete in these games right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not the Matty Ice of days gone, but I think that as it sits right now with the current roster you have, especially the quarterback position, then you have no choice but to stick with Ryan. And if things keep going the way that they're going for the Falcons, you don't have to worry about having to tank or putting in, your backup quarterback to tank for another pick to possibly, draft your next guy, because they're playing pretty bad as it stands. So that's not an issue they have to concern themselves with. But, it was only a couple of years ago that Matt Ryan was, playing in the Super Bowl. It was only a couple of years ago that they were, contenders year in and year out. I mean, and it's been such a fall from grace. I don't know if Matt Ryan looked better because of the supporting cast he had around him, or if his talent level has depleted. I still think he's your best option there, so you have to stick with him. But, there's definitely a dip in performance, and I think it's becoming more and more noticeable as the season progresses.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to our second bad beat of the week. I must say we were a little bit unlucky here. I mentioned the Falcons plus 12 down 28-25 in the fourth quarter, and then somehow managed to lose by about 17 points. The Dallas Cowboys versus San Diego Chargers. There was one punt in this game. There was 830 yards of total offense. And
how many points?
The score was 20-17. So somehow one punt 800 yards of offense and 20 points under the total score. We had the over of 55. It went to 37. Other than I'm downgrading both these teams, and Dallas won the game, but I wanted to get into that final drive clock management and the thought to kick a 56-yard field goal to try to win the game when you literally start with 2 minutes left at some point. But what did you make of this game?
This definitely wasn't on TV number one, as you like to call it. This was a game that I was kind of tuning in and out from. I wasn't too excited about this particular. I'm sitting there trying to figure out what's the deal with the clock management. This isn't, something new. It's something we saw last season also. So I don't know. I'm a little perplexed. These guys get paid a lot of money to make these decisions, and it leaves me scratching my head a little bit.
Yeah, I'll start out on hammering the Chargers. We blamed Anthony Lynn for a lot of these issues, but San Diego threw for a ridiculous amount of 338 yards. They rushed for 107 yards, and yet no points come out of it. They turn the ball over in the end zone. They have 2 touchdowns called back by penalties. They throw another interception, and overall they have 12 penalties for 100 yards in this game, which is just absolutely ridiculous, especially at home. Now, granted, I know it's not a quote-unquote home game because there were more Dallas fans there, but it just more the same for the Chargers. Really, they should have dominated this game, but they did not. They did not capitalize on their opportunities, which they had a ton, and ended up losing this game by a 56-yard field goal. So really disappointing the way the Chargers came out here. So we're going to get into the Broncos a little bit, but I definitely think the Broncos sort of nudged ahead of them in that spot behind the Chiefs in this division here.
Yeah, I mean, before we decide to move on, how about, did you watch that interception by Diggs?
Yeah.
That was amazing. I do have to give him props for that. That was a really nice interception.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say the picks weren't nice, but they certainly cost us the over.
Just by a bit.
Even though the teams were going up and down the field at will and nobody's defense was playing all that well. I'll get into the Cowboys side of things here. If you were a running back on the Cowboys, which one do you think you'd choose right now? Because I watched a lot of this game, and I know which one I'd probably lean on.
I mean, I don't know. You mentioned it before we kicked off the season that you thought Ezekiel had lost a step. And I kind of just pushed it off as he just didn't have his quarterback last season, so it put all the pressure on him. But as I watch him, I know it's early, I know it's only week 2, but as I watched part of that game, he just doesn't seem to have the same type of oomph. He just doesn't have that aggressiveness. It's almost like he's content to take what you'll give him as opposed to taking what he wants. I just don't see the same type of running back, and I don't know what it's due to. I really don't have an answer for that, but I do have to say that it's a little concerning.
Yeah, I have to agree. I still think he's a solid running back. I mean, he had a 4.4 yards per carry average. He still turns, 2-3 yard runs into 5-6 yard runs, and he turns 5-6 yard runs into 10-12 yard runs. The problem comes that Pollard seems to turn 5-6 yard runs into 20 yard runs, and He seems a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more explosive, a little bit better pass catching out of the backfield. And, I know it's a little tricky working him in there, but this offense seems a little bit more explosive when Tony Pollard is in there. I know it's difficult to sort of just bench Elliott, especially with what you're paying him. But, if you really want to win games, I think this is going to have to lean more and more towards Pollard and a little bit less towards Ezekiel Elliott here.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he just doesn't show what he did, in previous seasons. And not to take away from his talent, I'm not trying to say that he's lost it, but, he's definitely not the same back he was.
Yeah. I'll get into the Cowboys 2-minute drill. Somehow they have 2 minutes and 9 seconds and start at the about 20-yard line. Somehow managed to only gain about 30 yards, have 30 seconds when they start a play from about the 45, and somehow are forced to kick a 56-yard game-winning field goal. Mind you, with a kicker who missed 2 kicks last week, is coming off back surgery and has not had a lot of practice reps. Now, granted, Greg drilled it and did a great job and won them the game. But Mike McCarthy has to give you some very scary thoughts about winning close games. I think you win this game, but I think the example of it is just full how dangerous Mike McCarthy is back there coaching games.
Yeah, like I said earlier, he did it a couple times last season where it definitely left you scratching your head. And I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know how good of a coach you think he really is, but I've seen some things that I don't like ever since he made the move from Green Bay.
Yeah, definitely so. So we'll move past that game. I must say, I sort of I'm not in love with either of those teams right now going forward. I guess the Chargers showed me a little bit more offensively, but it seems like the same mistakes are going to occur and they're going to lose games they should win. And Dallas found a way to win the game, but it was not a good performance, I thought, overall for Dallas. So I still think we're okay with the Dallas Cowboys being in and around that sort of 8-8 range overall. All right, the last games in our mutual we got at the Buffalo Bills. Covered the first half line of 2.5. Always nice to pitch a shutout in that half and pitch a shutout for the game. 35-0 on the game. Probably not a lot to talk about here. Maybe the one talking point is Tua got drilled in that second series of the game, went out and was done for the game and probably done for this week at least. But what'd you make of this game, and what do you make of Tua once again hurt? It's starting to become in there that he might not be able to stay healthy and on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. I don't know how much of this you put on him, how much you put of it on the O-line, and how much you put of it on the scheme. But regardless of that, this game basically went kind of the way I thought it would. All minus, of course, the injury. I didn't see that coming, but I thought the Bills would come out really aggressive in this one. I thought they would come out aggressively both on defense and on offense, because I thought that there were very high stakes in this game. There was no way that the defending champions of the division were going to come out and go down 0-2 to the Dolphins, who were going to be basically looking down at them. So I thought they were going to come out really aggressive. I thought that they pretty much dominated on all facets of the game, on defense, offense. The running game looked really good for a change, which was good. But I do want to give at least a little bit of props to the Dolphins defense. After that Tua injury, as I was watching the game, I noticed that defense really came alive. And, maybe not at the final score of the game, but as the game was going on, they were keeping it close. They were trying to keep their team in it. It's just, it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I was going to say that defense held pretty strong there for about as long as it could before the offense just doing nothing, play after play. And eventually they broke down. You mentioned it on the Bills side of things. They ended up with 30 carries for 143 yards and 33 passes. I like that balance much, much better. They got some good rushing from Singletary, from Moss. They sprinkled in a little of Josh Allen instead of just making him, the sort of focus of the running game. So I think if they can lean a little bit more towards that, this Buffalo team looks good going forward. I will say this too. The Buffalo Bills defense has looked good 2 games in a row. They really shut down the Steelers last week. Those were punt returns, and they only gave up 1 touchdown, pitched a shutout in this one. Now, we're going to get into, the Steelers' offensive woes and what we think about them here. But overall, I think the Bills bounced back and looked pretty good here. So good win by the Bills, but they're just a much better team than Miami here.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. They're a better team, and they showed up when they had to.
All right, so those are our mutual picks. 2 and 3, a little bit of some unlucky losers in the that category. We'll go to my picks. I went 6 and 4 on the week, bringing me overall to 13, 6 and 1 on the year. The first game we're going to touch on, Indianapolis Colts, LA Rams. This was actually a really, really entertaining game here. Rams managed to pull it out and get a good drive there at the end. And then as per everything in the world, Carson Wentz somehow manages to turn both ankles. Jacob Eason is in there to lead the game-winning drives. And Jacob Eason did Jacob Eason things. Couple overthrows and then, of course, an interception. So curious of your thoughts on this game. What did you think of the Rams? What did you think of the Colts in this one?
As much as I love to be a homer and, take all kinds of little prop bets and player bets on my team, I didn't take any action on this game because I had a feeling that it was going to be a really close matchup. And it turned out to be. It was entertaining. I watched most of this game as I was kind of, trying to not miss part of the other games. And, Indianapolis on offense, I think that they're really going to be, and it's hard for me to really downgrade them because they depend so much on their running game. But I think losing your quarterback, even if that quarterback is Carson Wentz, which, by the way, I'm not trying to make him seem like he's not a good player.
I thought he played pretty well up into the point
exactly.
that, he got hurt and then couldn't come in the game. But I would have been very interested to see what would have happened if Wentz was in there to make a couple of those drives to see if they could tie or win the game there.
Yeah, it was a really close matchup, and I really think that if both teams are completely healthy, and they met each other in the playoffs, I think it'd be just as close. They're both really good teams with with their pros and their cons, and they match up really well. Overall, the Rams ended up with the win. It was really tight. They didn't cover the spread, which I didn't think they would, which is one of the reasons why I didn't take them. Whatever, you got to tip your hat off. They tried attacking Ramsey for some reason, late in that game when you have a chance to tie it or take the lead. And that's just not the side of the field you want to attack. I know that, he's not – the quarterback hasn't had a lot of play time, and that's fine and all, but you have to know who you're facing up against. This is one of the reasons why you watch film, why you study. It's to know who you're facing off the opposing side of the field. And going against Ramsey is probably not a good idea, especially when the game's on the line.
Yeah. Couple things here. I'm curious. How worried are you overall about the Rams rushing attack here? Henderson went out with a rib injury. I believe it's a cartilage injury. So that's either, he's going to be dealing with a whole lot of pain pretty much for the rest of the season if he continues to play. And then you're dropping to Sony Michel, who, wasn't even on the team 2 weeks ago. So I'm curious how worried you're getting about that running back depth there with the Rams. And then we'll get into the Colts and how worried you'd be. It's pretty much Wentz is going to struggle staying on the field. And right now, they won't be able to win games if their backup quarterback is Jacob Eason. So curious about those two things.
Okay, well, first off, on the Rams running back situation, I know that this is what they always have to tell the media, but the reports were that when Sony Michel made it to Rams headquarters after the trade, he was picking up the playbook really quickly, and the coaching staff was really impressed, yada, yada. We know what you're supposed to tell the media. But overall, I thought he played well. I thought that he looked just as good as Henderson was looking. I know that Henderson, is a little more explosive, and he probably knows the playbook a little bit better since he's been there a lot longer. But I thought Sony Michel did a good job, at least, making plays, and he still shows, the ability to extend an extra yard, an extra 3 inches, an extra foot, whatever, when he could be being brought down. I was impressed that he didn't show a lot during the first week. But I think that they'll be okay going forward. And I don't think Henderson will really miss any time. I think that he'll play, but he'll be in a more limited role where they're going to start sharing the ball a little more like they did last season.
Yeah. I'm just, it's starting to get concerning. It seems to be one of those seasons where the Ravens are going through it right now too, where whatever can go wrong in the running back room seems to be going wrong in the running back room. And I think you're probably okay as long as Sony stays relatively healthy, but then you're really probably getting into it if Sony gets banged up too. Hopefully Henderson can sort of recover from this, but I've had one of those things where your cartilage is, and it's not fun to deal with because you're dealing with it for weeks, because literally it's really difficult for you to heal because every time you move, essentially you're re-injuring the thing. And that's not even getting hit on it, on a weekly basis playing football. So it's probably just something to keep an eye on more than anything. As long as Sony stays healthy, you're probably okay. The Wentz side of things, I'm getting a little worried. He got hurt in the preseason, managed to make it back, gets hurt in game 2. And you saw the Colts are capable of competing with him in there. But the drop off, even between Wentz and Eason, is a massive, massive gap. And, I once again question why numerous teams, we'll get into the Steelers later, did not go after Gardner Minshew when he was available basically for a 6th-round pick here in case your quarterback got hurt, because Wentz to Eason is just, you aren't even competing. I think I probably end up moving the Houston Texans above you if there's a healthy Tyrod Taylor, if Jacob Eason is your quarterback.
As far as the Colts situation is concerned, I'd definitely be worried. I think that it's been a while since we've seen Carson Wentz play an entire season, so there's concern there about his durability and his injury proneness. It hasn't always been on the offensive line and the protection. Some of the situations have been on him, where he can't protect himself. At some point, you have to protect yourself. But I do understand one of the reasons why the Colts didn't go after a guy like you said, Minshew. And I think it's because of the quarterback that they were envisioning as their starter, which is Wentz. He had just come from a really bad situation in Philly where his confidence level had probably deteriorated to a really low level. So they probably wanted to make sure that they at least tried to build up that confidence that, listen, this is the backup and there's no way this guy's beating me out for the job. This is my team. This is my job. So I get it from that perspective, but you're also playing the NFL. This is, you're in this league to win. You're not playing, for a second place trophy. You're trying to win the whole thing here. So I don't understand why they wouldn't have gone from, I see the logic behind it, but personally, I definitely would have picked up someone better to at least close that gap in talent.
Yeah. I just, you mentioned it. This is the NFL. We're trying to win games here. I'm not really concerned with Carson Wentz and his feelings about somebody threatening his job, because especially when you get hurt all the time, and now we have Jacob Eason in there and he gives us zero chance to win the game. All right. We'll move on to my loss on the New York Jets plus the 6 of games that were the worst of the week. I'm not
laughing at you. I'm not laughing at you. Just wifey was laughing at you. That's all I got to say.
Well, I hope she watched the Patriots offense, because it wasn't exactly blowing down the field at a rapid rate. This game was rather close for as terrible as the Jets played. So I wouldn't be all that pumped about the Patriots side of things as well. Anyway, this was a pretty bad game. I must say I was a little disappointed overall in the Jets. And also, I probably should be honest. And once all those receivers for the Jets were ruled out, a bet might have not been placed on this game overall. So this might have been a Friday bet, but it was not a Sunday bet once Braxton Berrios became the New York Jets number 1 receiver overall. So anyway, I was a little disconcerted with the way the Jets game plan came in here without their tackle. I already mentioned their top 3 receivers weren't playing, and then they were still having Zach launch the ball down the field, which of course resulted in tons of picks. This possibly might be why Sam Darnold sucked there. It just seems like a cauldron of death if you want to go there and try to learn how to play football. Overall, I thought the Patriots defense once again looked really, really good, but I start to question this offense a little bit on the Patriots side of things, even more so. So what did you make of this game?
Yeah, I mean, I got to give props where props are due, and that's Bill Belichick and his defense. We pretty much assume that he's going to at least bring a competitive defensive team to any season that he plays. And this is no different. And I think that this is basically what they're going to hang their hat on is going to be their defense. They're going to try and keep it as simple as possible for the young quarterback. You look at his numbers. He had under 200 yards, I think, throwing.
Yeah.
And he still managed to complete a lot of passes. So you can tell a lot of them were basically, let's just keep the chains moving. Let's keep possession of the ball. Let's control the ball, control the clock. And that's just how Bill Belichick coaches his teams. They're very well coached. So you're never really going to count them out. And I think part of the reason why they won this game also is because of the media. You hear it every year when Bill Belichick is going up against a rookie quarterback. Belichick, this record versus rookie quarterback. And I think that might have got into Wilson's head because he had a really bad game. Granted, he didn't have his receivers. I know they're scratched. Some of them basically had game time decisions. But there's still NFL quarterbacks. There's still NFL wide receivers. At some point, you got to at least look somewhat respectable. You can't make some of the throws you made. But the Patriots running game, it looked pretty good for most of the game. At some point, who was it? Who was running the ball?
Harris was 60 for 62, and James White was 5 for 20. So
I'm talking about the Harris run. I was sitting watching one of the games and looking at my fantasy team at the same time when I heard Wifey just scream out loud, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?" So I ran over to the other room to look, and she's screaming because her running back is breaking tackles like Marshawn Lynch. That was a great run. So definitely got to tip my hat off to him. And overall, it was a decent team win. It wasn't all offense, it wasn't all passing game, it wasn't all rushing game. It was a team win against a pretty bad team.
Yeah. But I'll be curious to see how the Patriots go forward offensively. I do think that's going to be a little bit of an issue, but was impressed with the defense. Jets, I think the defense is a little spunky. It did keep them in the game for a little bit, but I question how they develop quarterbacks and offense, and I think that's going to be just continuing to be an issue overall. All right, we'll go to the next game. Raiders went into Pittsburgh, won 26-17, and really sort of dominated the Steelers here. Let's get into the Raiders offense first, because I think that's the most important thing. Derek Carr just lit them up, 28 for 37 for 382 yards and 2 touchdowns. They were without their running back, so they were down to Peyton Barber and Kenyon Drake. They couldn't run the ball, but they were able to pass the ball all over the place. What do you make of this Raiders team? Probably two of the best wins to start the season, beating Baltimore on Monday, coming in on a short week, beating the Steelers on the road. So really impressive start from the Raiders so far this year.
I mean, I thought the game was pretty entertaining. I caught bits and pieces of it here and there. I think the momentum really shifted once Watt went out of that game. That defense, I remember tweeting out that I thought that defense could still be, competitive even without Watt. And it could be, but he's such an anchor for that defense that, I didn't realize it was really going to impact the game that much. And I do have to tip my hat out to Derek Carr. They came out and he put up big numbers against one of the tougher defenses in the league, if not the best defense in the league. So you got to give him, the respect he deserves there. I'm scared to really, put them not on a pedestal, but to say that they aren't what I thought they were, because they've had 2 really good performances as of right now. They're in a tie for their division lead, I believe.
They're
in first place.
They're in first place, tied with the Broncos. The Chiefs are in third place right now.
So, I mean, if, if I would have told you before the season started that, 2 games into the season, the Chiefs were going to be looking up at the Raiders and the Broncos, you would have called me crazy, and I would have called myself crazy. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're winning games, with offense, and they're doing enough on defense to, keep them ahead. So you got to tip your hat off, and good performance from the whole team. But part of that, just I have to believe that T.J. Watt his injury really impacted that game.
Yeah, I think that helped out a little bit, but to flip things over, I think we got to get into the Ben Roethlisberger conversation here.
Yes. Listen, I know you're going to get into it. I just want to say something. You're right. Okay. I'm seeing the effects of age and hits and wear and tear on him. I didn't want to believe it, but I'm seeing it. Some of the throws that he made as an NFL quarterback, you shouldn't be making those throws. There's no reason for it. This guy is a veteran of years. This guy's been Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. I mean, he's a champion. There's no reason for him to make the type of throws he threw. Some of them he got lucky and they just fell on the ground. But God, I'm seeing what you've been talking about now.
Yeah. I just, if you're going to have him throw 40 times a game, which was absolutely ridiculous. I get it. The line's bad and you're struggling running the ball. But if you're going to go 15 run carries, 40 passes, how long before you test the waters on the Dwayne Haskins life preserver here?
This is the issue, is that even though Ben's playing bad and he's making really bad decisions, and it seems like he's under duress, and as soon as he turns to a different player. Even with all that, I mean, what you're getting from Haskins. So I don't see how you can make the change. I just don't see it. I understand that, he's a little more mobile, a lot more mobile, but I can't even go with you're losing the experience argument, because the way he's been playing lately, I can't even make that argument. So I don't know I don't know. You can make the switch, I guess.
Well, I was speaking of Gardner Minshew. I think this decision would be a lot easier if Minshew was the backup quarterback. It's just, he's got nothing. He's a statue in that pocket. He has zero arm strength left. It's not good. And the thing is, they have weapons. You have Schuster, you have Claypool, you have Deontay Johnson, you have Najee Harris to run. I don't think Dwayne Haskins is the answer, but his body is at least live. It's not like a walking cadaver sitting back there in the pocket. And I don't know, I think if you want to win games, it's sad, but you're going to have to pull the trigger and get Ben out of there. I don't know if Dwayne's the answer, but I don't think you can win a ton of football games with Ben Roethlisberger as your quarterback right now.
Before we move on, let me ask you a quick question. I know that, they're not the same team, but for comparison, Gina's sake, does this kind of remind you a little bit of that Jared Goff-led Rams team when they had a really good defense, but the offense just could not get going? Because this is what it feels like to me.
It does. The thing is, though,
Jared Goff was
at least a live body. He could maneuver around. If this was Ben Roethlisberger, say even 5 years ago, I think this Pittsburgh team we're talking about is one of the top contenders. But this is not Ben Roethlisberger. This is just his name. It's
Mr.
no longer
Roethlisberger.
Yeah, this is no longer the Ben Roethlisberger, who's a quarterback who can stand in that pocket and take a bunch of hits. His body is gone, and he can no longer sort of play quarterback in this league. So I know it's sad, but I am just wondering how long you stay with it, or do you just eat it the rest of the year and realize, there's always next year. I don't know if Dwayne Haskins is the answer. If you had a good backup quarterback, I think you'd be a little more prone to do it. But it's a situation I'd monitor, is what I'd say. So We'll move on. I got a win in the Carolina Panthers plus 3.5 over the New Orleans Saints. I got a loss in the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 6 versus the Denver Broncos. That was always sitting there for my backdoor cover. Unfortunately, the Jags offense does not seem really capable of backdoor covering quite yet. Lawrence was not very good in this game. I thought he'd be able to rack up some cheap numbers late like he did in that Texans game. He was not capable of it. Broncos ended up winning 23-13. Lawrence 14-33, 118 yards, 2 interceptions. I did think the Jags defense played a little bit better, looked a little bit more spry, but I'm curious what you make of the Broncos in this game.
You know, I gotta say, I'm starting to come around on the Broncos, and I did tweet out, you know, as the games were going on, about a couple teams that were kind of starting to, you know, at least change my perspective on where they stand. And I think the Broncos are one of those teams. I know that they've had some injuries and they've had some issues, but overall, it seems like they're playing as a complete unit, both on offense and defense and special teams. Coaching seems to be doing a pretty good job at least putting together the right type of game plan based off their opponents. Now, I say all this, and it's only week 2, so I don't want to get ahead of myself here. You know, they very easily could lose the next 15 games and end up 2-15. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I do have to say this very young season so far, they're one of the teams that have impressed me.
Yeah, I'm sort of in between on the Broncos here. 2 impressive road wins, but then you know, a win versus the Giants, a win versus the Jags. Both games, you know, not really blowouts, relatively tight. This one was a little bit more comfortable than that Giants win. So I just don't quite know where to place them. But I think when you put Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, this is what you get. You know, Teddy's going to win games versus these poor teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Giants. So maybe they're that team that, you know, wins the games they're supposed to, loses the games they're supposed to. Maybe they get into that playoffs and then, you know, they get, you know, massacred by a Chiefs or a Bills or something. So I'm curious to see how this team more so plays versus a team that's sort of a little bit more advanced than the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Giants. But so far, gotten their business done 2 games in a row here.
And listen, as it sits right now, they're going to win their division, so.
I credit the Raiders with Ravens and Steelers wins better than Jags and Giants wins here. All right. I got a loss and a win in the Minnesota Vikings Arizona Cardinals game. Lost the -3 first half, won the over 24. We already talked about that game. We already talked about the Bucks Falcons game, lost the +12, won the first half -7. And I won the Tennessee Titans plus the 6 versus Seattle Seahawks here. Really probably the best game on the day. Seahawks dominated the first half. Tennessee Titans defense still atrocious. If you have a speed receiver, run him in a straight line down the field, he will be open. But Derrick Henry found his mojo and annihilated the Seahawks in the second half. So I'm curious your thoughts on this game, how it played out, and what do you make of the Titans? What do you make of the Seahawks here?
Well, a couple of things. One thing, I'm glad that the Tennessee offense finally decided to wake up, but their defense still showed too many lapses to make me comfortable about picking this defense to win any type of game. That being said, Seattle did the exact same thing. They were ahead in a game where I thought they were pretty much dominating for the entire first half. They came out the second half and looked really flat-footed. And Tennessee, credits to Tennessee, they pounced on them. They didn't deviate from their game plan, which is to really get Derrick Henry involved in the game. And that opened up a lot of different holes for, you know, the rest of the guys on offense. You know, you saw Julio Jones out there catching passes. Even Brown, you know, he had a big drop, but he also made up for it with a couple of nice catches. And, you know, it got momentum going. But as I've said it before, I really thought that this team is going to be one of those teams that has to count on their offense to win games because their defense is not doing many favors so far this season. Maybe at some point they get it figured out. I don't know. But as it stands right now, I think both of these teams are very susceptible defensively, but they have very potent offenses. So that's a plus.
Yeah. I don't know what I think about the Seahawks here. Tough way to lose this game. Don't think they should have. Tennessee, I sort of have a pretty good read on. I really liked the win here, but their offensive line is still brutal. Their defense is still brutal. But when you have Derrick Henry, that's the great equalizer. And I think we've seen it the two games. As Derrick Henry goes, the Tennessee Titans goes. If Derrick Henry is superhuman and rushes for, 182 yards and catches 55 yards and passes, the Tennessee Titans are going to be in the game. If he, has, 15 carries for 57 yards, they're going to get killed like they did the week before. And that's just a tough way to play football. Putting everything on a running back to literally carry your whole offense. It's just, you're going to get games where you beat the Seahawks and you're going to get games where they probably lose to Texans or Jaguars just because everything is so dependent on Derrick Henry and him having ridiculously high performance games every week. So I sort of know where Tennessee is. It'll be curious to see how that division plays out with the Colts. Seattle, I'm a little bit more, I don't know what I'm getting here. The defense looks good at times. The defense looks bad at times. The offense looked great at times, and then it couldn't do anything in the second half, and in the overtime, they were even worse. So I don't know quite what to read of the Seattle Seahawks here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Seahawks are concerned, I understand, your feeling about this team. It happened last season also. We saw a very potent offense pretty much all season long. That defense was getting shredded early on. And then as it got later in the season, that defense started playing a lot better. And the offense team seemed to kind of slow down a little bit. So it seems like this similar type of team build here. I think they're going to be susceptible defensively, and they're going to struggle going up against teams with high-powered offenses. But it's those teams that don't have really potent offenses that they're going to be able to take advantage of, and those are the games that they should be winning. But this was a good matchup, and I think it was a good test for where they stand defensively.
Yeah, it should be interesting overall. All right, we'll move to you. You went 4-4 overall. We already talked about the Buffalo Bills. You got a double up in that one. Buffalo Bills first half -2.5, Buffalo Bills -3.5 for the game. So 2 wins on that one. We didn't break down this one. You got the win in the San Francisco 49ers first half -2.5 over the Philadelphia Eagles. Interesting game, really sort of brutal first half that the Eagles kind of dominated. And then sort of the 49ers played their way into this game, sort of closed it out and ended up winning 17-11. Didn't love the way the Eagles played in this one. Thought they came back to earth a little bit, but I did think it was a good sign that they managed to sort of stay in this game. I'm curious what you made of this performance and what you made of the 49ers here.
The 49ers, I think that they're probably, if things continue going the way that they currently are, and as I said before, it's early in the season, but if they continue going at this pace, the 49ers aren't going to be as good as we thought they were going to be. I don't know how much of it's due to injury. I know they lost, the running back for an extended period of time. They lost, I believe, another corner. So they've had some injury. The injury bug is plaguing them a little bit again this season. Not as bad as last season, but it's still plaguing them. And they're definitely beatable, okay? But it's not a team that I want to catch on an off Sunday because they have the ability to make you pay for mistakes. They're well coached. They have weapons, and they have a friendly system for pretty much all positions where you can take a guy, even a guy who hasn't got much play time, and really make him shine. So I like the 49ers, but just that way they really started off, it's concerning. They've had an issue starting games and they've had an issue closing games. So a little concerning if you're a Niner fan, but overall, I think they're going to be good.
Yeah. It's sort of hot and cold with me. I think quarterback becomes an issue. I didn't love the way Jimmy G played in this game. Just didn't seem to be able to make, plays like he was getting the ball into Deebo Samuel's hands and stuff. Now they are on running back like 25 already. Granted, everyone they put in there seems to be able to run the ball okay, so I don't know how big a deal that is, but I'm wondering if they just start grabbing random people off the street and see if they can get 4 yards per carry. But Niners defense, I thought, looked really, really good, shut down the Eagles really well, but I just thought Jimmy G did not look great in this game. Was checking down a whole lot, not of a lot of the explosive plays coming out of that side of the ball on the passing game for the 49ers.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the Arizona Cardinals first half, -3.5. Double loss on that one.
That was done.
Yeah, I don't think you need any more Cardinals futures in that one. We already mentioned the tough beat in the Dallas Cowboys, LA Chargers over 55. Seattle Seahawks first half -3.5 and -6. You got the win in the first half of the game, the loss for the game. So split those. And Kansas City Chiefs -2.5 versus the Baltimore Ravens. Really, really entertaining game. But Baltimore came out on top. Interesting the way this game played out. Chiefs got a nice little pick six to start the game. We're sort of dominating it, but in their Chiefs fashion, just seemed like they were playing lazy. And then got the ball back when Lamar Jackson made that great drive to give them a lead. Looked like they were going to drive down, kick the game-winning field goal, and, blase, they do what they do. For some reason, handed the ball to Hilaire. Hilaire fumbled the ball, and Baltimore goes for it on 4th and 1, gets it. I wasn't overly impressed with that. I know the announcers were really, really impressed with that maneuver, but why the hell would you give the Chiefs back the ball? I doubt they were giving Hilaire another carry. My guess is 3 passes were going to Kelsey, and they were going to kick the game-winning field goal. So you better get the first down and keep the ball out of their hands. But curious what you made of this game.
To me, and this is going to sound like blasphemy, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for saying this because I tend to say things that aren't really accurate. But I'll give you my opinion on this, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs, to me, are a more polished version of the Arizona Cardinals, okay? And the reason I say that is Patrick Mahomes, he's a great quarterback, okay? I don't want to be, misinterpreted here. He's a great quarterback. He's got all the skill sets that you could ask for, at that position. But the team in general plays very lazy and dangerously. And he makes so many good plays that's basically all we know him for. But, because of the type of plays that they make, the type of offense that they run, they're so dependent on the explosive play that when things don't go that way, they tend to struggle. We saw it in the Super Bowl. And, we saw it a few times last season, for example, like when the Raiders beat them. And we've seen it so far this season twice. I know that they won that first game, but at some point it looked like they probably could have lost that game. And now you see what happened in this one, a game that when it started, I was like, oh, this game's over. You give the Chiefs 7 points to start the game off and Patrick Mahomes hasn't even taken the field. I'm like, this game's over, and we all see what the final outcome of that game was. So to me, they're a better team than the Cardinals, in my opinion. I don't want to be, like I said, misunderstood, but I think they're just a more polished version of the Cardinals. A lot of smoke, a lot of mirrors. I did think before that they were being lazy and they were kind of waking up when they had to. But so far, what they've shown these 2 games, I feel like they're beatable. I don't think they're, as dangerous as we made them out to be prior to the season starting.
Yeah, I like your analysis on that because I felt the same way. They had that 11-point lead, and it looked like they didn't even care that they blew it because they knew they could go down and get points when they needed to, which, technically speaking, they probably can. And they were pretty much doing it until Edwards-Helaire fumbled. But, that's just it. What happens if Edwards-Helaire fumbles and then you lose that game because you're sort of just in cruise control mode, or, Mahomes does do, a crazy pass, and this time it gets intercepted like it did in that game that brought Baltimore back into this game. It just seemed like Baltimore really wanted to win this game, and the Chiefs were like, if we need to win this game, we'll go down and win this game. And it just didn't work out. And, it's a little bit like, I equate it to like those Detroit Pistons teams in the early to mid 2000s. Early on, they were fighting in a great defensive team and were winning regular season games. Then by about that 2005, 6, 7, 8 range, you started to hear, the regular season doesn't matter. We'll turn it on in the playoffs. And, it just started to be cruise. And then you try to turn that key on in the playoffs, and then you're losing to a team that's hungry and better than you. And I think you saw it in the Super Bowl. The Buccaneers were more hungry, and they ended up winning the game. And I'm curious if, a Buffalo, a Baltimore, a Cleveland might be a little bit more hungry in those playoffs, and the Chiefs go to flip that switch and go into overdrive mode, and it's not there that time.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to be, misunderstood and make it out to be that they're not talented. They're super talented. They have talent at every skill position you could want it at. I'm just saying that maybe they're too dependent on that explosiveness, or too dependent on that specialness, to create, something out of nothing, that when it doesn't happen, because it can't happen all the time, you're going to falter, and it's going to look like this. So again, don't want to be misunderstood, but like I said, to me, they're just not as good as we made them out to be.
Yeah, I think you sum it up perfectly. We all know they can score when they want to. The problem is that's exactly what they do. It seems like they score when they want to, and when they sort of just want to put the cruise control on and sort of hum their way through the game, that's what they're doing. It just makes it hard. You saw it last week in the Cleveland game. They exploded in a 5-minute stretch. They exploded early on in this Baltimore game, then sort of sat back. And then when the Ravens started making plays, defense couldn't get stops. And then they're like, Patrick, come save us. And granted, Patrick was driving down and saving them, but then they handed the ball to Hilaire. He fumbled, and game loss. So just sort of it'll be interesting to see how this Kansas City Chiefs season plays out. 95% of the time, they're probably better than every one of these teams and can do that style of play. But when they come up versus an elite team like this, it'll be interesting to see if they can still win football games. All right. We'll go to some of the games we didn't bet on. There were only 3 of them we did not have bets on between the two of us. So
that's something new.
A lot of action. And this one I can understand why we didn't have bets on, but the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Chicago Bears. We did get a little bit of Fields. He did not look good, but luckily Andy Dalton was in there and spotted the Bears enough of a lead. Joe Burrow was absolutely murdered in this game numerous times by the Bears defense through a pick 6. What'd you make of this game? It's just sort of the Bears are a little bit better team than Cincinnati, but I was not overly impressed on either one of these.
I think the Bears are a little bit better defensively than Cincinnati. And I talked about it during week 1 when they went up against the Rams. I said that, they're big guys, which was, Quinn, Hakeem, and, those guys are the guys that really need to step up and contribute to this team to keep them in games, because if they're not humming, you're offensively, Andy Dalton, listen, he's, I'm sure he's a great person and everything, but he's not going to win you games. He'll keep you in games, but he's not going to win you games. And you brought in the rookie, I know that when Dalton got hurt, they brought him in, and,
that's when Cincinnati got back in the game.
Yeah, I saw some nice things, but there's a reason why the coach has him on the bench learning, because he's not ready yet. And I think it became evident as that game was going on. But the outcome was what it was. I'm not too shocked by it, but I think both of these teams still have a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah, just really overall just a bad game. I didn't watch a ton of it, and I doubt I will go back and rewatch this game on my Game Pass. So
I thought that's what you were doing on your night off.
no, that is not what I'm doing on my night off. The Cincinnati Bengals, Chicago Bears replay Game Pass, even in the fast mode, probably will not be rewatched too much. Houston and Cleveland. I sort of do want to get into this game because I thought it was really, really entertaining. And honestly, I will admit I might have been totally wrong about the Houston Texans up until the point when Tyrod Taylor pulled his hamstring. The Texans were in this game. I don't know if they were going to win it, but they were playing good football. Tyrod was ridiculously efficient. And they were sort of running the ball and giving Cleveland a little bit of problems. But then Tyrod got hurt. Once again, we have backup quarterback issues. Davis Mills came in, and he was atrocious at Stanford. And you won't believe this. If you are bad in college, you're going to be even worse in the pros.
That's usually how it goes.
Sort of how it played out. He was really, really bad. And, rightfully so, especially with this Browns defense. Curious what you thought of the Browns. Curious what you thought of the Texans here.
I mean, just quickly, the Browns, I think that they're definitely, starting to open my eyes more to them being an actual contender. I said they had the possibility of being so just because they had so many good, names on the team. But I tweeted out during the game that they have to try, this is the Browns, they have to try and limit what they're asking of their quarterback. Not that he's not talented, but when they ask too much of him, he tends to make mistakes or, like that interception he threw. It was a bad pick, granted you're going to live past that. You got to move on, on to the next play, as they say. But, instead you could tell that it messed with him enough to where he tried to make a play as a defensive player now, and he ended up getting hurt. Granted he was a tough guy and he was able to come back into the game after that, but it's just not something you want to see from your, franchise quarterback. But the Texans, to flip the script here, I was really impressed. This is one of the teams that I tweeted about where I mentioned that I think they're starting to change my mind. I think this team is not the team that we expect to be. And I mentioned it a little bit, during our preview of this week's show when I said this team seems like they're after respect. It seems like they're trying to make a statement. These aren't the same guys that were on the Houston Texans last season. And it's starting to show because they don't carry themselves the same way. They have a different, aura about them. They're carrying themselves with some spunk and they're fighting, man. And they're playing really well. I got to tip my hat off to them. Their running game looks really good. Like you said, until the injury, the quarterback was really efficient. He was moving the ball, and I didn't think they were causing little problems for the Browns. I thought they were causing big problems because at one point I thought, man, the Texans could win this game.
Yeah, I definitely bullied to the Texans. It's going to hurt because Tyrod Taylor's definitely going to miss Thursday's game. I think it's already been announced. And that's probably a winnable game on Thursday that now they won't win. But if Tyrod can get healthy, from what we've seen from the AFC South, I think this Texans team can contend. And I was really, really wrong. Now, I will say, coaching-wise, he's not going to get my worst coach, but you have to explain the decision. It was 3rd and 15. The Browns jump off sides. They get a 13-yard play. So they decide to decline the penalty, make it 4th and 2, and then they punt. I'm just curious. Why are you declining the penalty to punt? Why not take the extra down? That's the only thing that gives me a bit of pause about the Houston Texans and what's going on the coaching side of things there.
Listen, I'm just going to say that what I'm assuming happened here is they were playing field position. They weren't playing downs, or they were trying to get a first down. They were trying to advance the ball here. They were trying to play the field. Where do we feel more comfortable punting from? I don't know. I thought that it was a really bad call. I think that it shows at least the lack of confidence in your offense to be able to, convert on, granted, it would have been a larger conversion that they needed, but it still gives you an extra try. So I don't understand the logic there. But I will say this, that was way too easy. And that's the only reason why he's not going to be my worst coach of the week. But it almost seemed like a give me. I wasn't going to take it.
Yeah, I know. Because I've loved on the Texans so far these first 2 weeks. I didn't want to, but that raised an eyebrow of what the hell is going on. And why the hell do we decline a penalty to punt the ball when you literally just got 13 yards on a play? How about try again on 3rd and 10? Or go for it on 4th and 2. I don't know. But declining a penalty to punt is a first, I must say, through years of very bad coaching that I've seen. Anyway, that's staying in my mind for future bad coaching hires. But anyway, we'll get to the last game, the Monday Night Football game. Lions were a little bit spunky here, but the Rodgers and Green Bay took over in that second half. What'd you make of this game? Sort of par of the course. Guess what? Green Bay's not going to be the worst team in football, despite what they look like in week 1.
Yeah, despite what they looked like in the first half also, because that first half, it looked like Detroit was going to stay in this game pretty much to the very end. It wasn't until the second half when they really started to separate themselves and you start to see the talent gap with both teams. With that being said, I do want to tip my hat off to Detroit and Jared Goff. You saw some of the skill sets that he possesses that was able to, get his team to a Super Bowl, even though he didn't win it. He's got talent. He's a talented guy. He's a talented kid. But it's something about him. Once he feels pressure, you see him get really jumpy. And I think that's when the game starts to shift. It starts to get away from him. But overall, Swift and all those guys, Hodgkinson, I think that they all played really well. They were competitive as long as they could be. So eventually, like I said, the talent gap became really noticeable. But, the Packers were supposed to win the game. They won the game. The Lions wanted to prove something. And at least for the first half, I think they did. They proved that, they're going to try their best and that they're not as bad as we probably assumed they were going to be.
Yeah, props to the Lions once again, played hard. I think they're going to play hard all year long. They'll probably snip some wins here and there. I thought Jared Goff was pretty solid once again. It appears he's going to have the Matthew Stafford Detroit Lions season. Whole lot of numbers.
That's what I was thinking.
Not a whole lot of wins, but Green Bay just looked really, really good. Rodgers threw a couple of just darts. I don't know if you saw it, but that pass to Tanyan for the touchdown that he zinged past that linebacker's here.
I don't know how he
was literally possibly the most ridiculous pass I've seen in a while. Just off a back foot, drills that thing right past it and pretty much just throws it right on Tanyan's shoulder there. So ridiculous from Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be okay.
Yes. Relax.
All right. So that's where we go from the games this week. Let's go to our best and worst. What do you got for best on the offensive side of things here?
Now, look, I could have gone with Derrick Henry and his monster game. I could have gone with, there's a bunch of different guys who had really good games this week, but I have to be a homer. I'm rocking the gear today. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the blue. I got my mouse pad on blue. I'm going with Cooper Kupp of the Rams. I thought he had a really explosive game, and I thought that he was probably the main reason why the Rams were able to actually pull off the win there. He got open just about every single possession. It seemed like they couldn't stick with him. He was running his routes, so very crisp routes, and he's got really soft hands. I really like his play, and I think that this is probably going to be a career season for him. As far as having Stafford, them they have a really good connection. There's a lot of chemistry there, and I think the season's going to turn out to be probably his best season so far, which is not saying much because he's a pretty young guy, but really talented. And I know he's not going to get many of these, so I thought I'd give him the nod early on in the season.
Yeah, that's a good call. I'm going to give a shout out to Carr. Really, this is probably a 2-game award since he played 2 games within 1 week of each other. He played on Monday night. He played on Sunday. Was really good on Monday night and was, I thought, even better without, Josh Jacobs in there versus a tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I know Watt left early, but still a really good Pittsburgh defense. And I think Carr needs a little bit of love here. So on the offensive side of things, I got Carr on this one. Where are we going on the defensive side of things?
On the defensive side of the ball, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to single out a player. I'm going with Mike Edwards of the Bucs. He had 2 big interceptions in that fourth quarter, back-to-back pick sixes, actually. I can't remember the last time I saw that, to really close out this game and, put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, of their opponent. He came out, got the job done, played really well, and he's my defensive player of the week.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with team and then single out a couple guys. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. Once again, this is sort of a progressive thing. They really played well in that Pittsburgh Steelers game, and then to pitch a shutout in that Miami game. Once again, Tua was out. It was Jacoby Brissett, but to throw shutouts in the NFL, no matter
really hard.
Who's playing what, it is a difficult task. And then I wanted to go with AJ Espina, who really, really played well along that defensive line, still only sort of filling in spots on that defensive line, mostly coming down on pass rushing down. And then the linebacker and free safeties in Matt Milano, who have given some grief a handful of times, and then Jordan Poyer. So a lot of good play off that Buffalo Bills defense, which we thought sort of slipped a little bit last year, but appears to be playing pretty good football right now on the side of things. All right, on the coaching side of things, where are you going on the best?
I really wanted to give it to Matt Rule. I thought that, he had a really good week, put together a good game plan going up against a division opponent where they were actually considered to be underdogs, and not just beating them, but beating them, pretty, decisively. But I actually decided to go with Sean McDermott, coach of the Bills. I thought that he did a really good job. This was a really important game. They had to win this. Otherwise, you were going to go down 0-2 to the Dolphins in the division. And you just couldn't have that. Not if you were going to try and really win out this division and show them that you're the owner of this division. They came out and they had a really balanced game plan, which is something that we don't normally see from the Bills. We always ask for it, but we don't normally see it. They had a very balanced game plan. They rushed the ball just as many times as they passed the ball, and they pitched a shutout. So it's hard to really fault someone for that.
Yeah. On the coaching side of things, I'm sticking with the Raiders and John Gruden. I know we've given him a handful of grief, but to have that offense humming like it is, and to win, 2 games in a row like this, Baltimore on Monday night, short week going to Pittsburgh, got to give him his props. So I'm going John Gruden on the offensive, on the head coach of best of the week. All right, on worst of the week, where are you going on the offensive side of things?
On the offense side of the ball, and I know it's a little unfair because the guy's a rookie, but I'm going with the Jets quarterback, Wilson. I thought that he had a very, very bad performance. I don't know if the media talking about, Coach Bill Belichick's record versus rookies got into his head, or maybe he just, went up against a really tough defense that he had trouble really deciphering. But he ended up with 4 interceptions, I believe, for the game. It's just, I understand he's a rookie and it's early in the season, but 4 picks in a game, you're probably going to get, worst player of the week.
Yeah, that's a little cruel. Be nice to young Jets quarterbacks. It's not their fault. I got to go with Jameis here. You start to break down those numbers in the first week. He didn't throw for all that many yards. He had a couple nice deep passes, but this week versus Carolina, he was just brutal. And it didn't look like a very good Saints offense. Now, I know they were on the road and minus coaches, but it has to be better if the Saints are going to win games. We'll certainly see that matchup this week versus the Patriots and how that goes. I'm just curious how long this lasts before we see a little bit more of the Tyson Hill experience coming in there with things. So Jameis Winston on the offensive side of things for my worst of the week. Where are you going on the defensive side of things for worst of the week?
I'm changing it up a little bit for worst of the week on defense. I'm actually going with the team that won, and I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals defense. And simply put, because you can't play like this and win every single week. I know that it's nice to have very potent, offense, all those shiny toys on the outside, all those different weapons, a quarterback who can get out. I will say, definitely the most elusive team I've seen in a long time as a team completely. But that defense, you got to, at some point, you got to shut teams down. It doesn't matter if your offense is putting up 40 points, you got to be able to shut a team down. And with all the big names they've had on there, it seems like they can only do it when they're going up against really weak teams. So for that reason, Cardinals defense, worst of the week.
Yeah, this probably has to be a double first since we're both going with the same thing and a team that ended up winning the game. So I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals defense. And I sort of wanted to point out J.J. Watt too. Everybody was hyping that he's still got life. He's still great after that, first week. Versus the Tennessee Titans. He didn't look like he had a whole lot of life this week. He played 55 snaps, 2 total pressures. He just was a total non-factor in this game. So Arizona Cardinals defense overall, and sort of a little J.J. Watt as an individual that I'd sort of single out there a little bit.
I hope he didn't blow his Watt last week.
Yes, that's a great joke there. All right, where are we going on the coaching side of things on worst of the week?
For worst coach of the week, I'm actually going to go with, a coach that I've actually praised a lot over the last season or so, Sean Payton of the New Orleans Saints. Simply put, you look really explosive week 1, and then you come out and you basically lay an egg. You talked about Jameis Winston. You only had 111 yards throwing. Combined as a team, I think they had less than 50 yards rushing as a team. And you're talking about a team that I know that they don't have Drew Brees. I get all that, but they have different players that you can plug in for gimmick plays. They have explosive running backs. They have explosive, players on the outside. I just think that a coach that's this creative and that we give a lot of credit to, for the offensive genius that he brings to the table to put up this type of offensive performance, I think the game plan has something to do with it. So Sean Payton, worst of the week.
Yeah, I must say I wanted to do the special double of Zach Taylor winning best of the week in week 1 and worst of the week in week 2. I'll give him a little bit of a pass here. I sort of wanted to code this one in Pete Carroll and Mike Tomlin. I just thought they didn't have really great game plans going into this game. Really disliked how the Steelers threw the ball 40 times. I know they were behind, but you just can't throw the ball 40 times in a game like that and only run the ball 15. And then just sort of the way the Seahawks sort of managed that game, certainly in the second half. I know there were a couple taunting penalties in there that benefited the Titans and gave them cheap first downs. But it seems like they could have managed that game much, much better. So Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin, ones that usually aren't on the worst coaches list with Sean Payton. So a tough week for the higher end coaches on our side of things. All right. That does it for the week. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our shows. We had our college football recap of week 3 just yesterday. It is out now. Our winning daily show will be coming all week, as a lot of soccer coming out during the week. Don't want to miss that. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our shows. Achilles, where can we find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter and hear me blabber nonsense at TD Achilles.
All right. That's our show, and we're out.